Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to give you a very quick update on what's happening up in County Meath, in Kells, and also just to bring you up to speed on a project that we're doing working with the Irish Walled Towns Network and the Heritage Council. Kells is probably one of a small number of Irish towns that can date its origin back to an early monastic site, and that's still visible in the streetscapes today in the town, and we have a number of really important heritage sites and monuments in the town which are very much preserved as part of the fabric of the town. And in 2010 actually Kells became inscribed on the tentative World Heritage List as part of a serial nomination that was put forward. So it's really important from a heritage perspective, but also obviously hugely important as the administrative area of North Meath, and has a very, very vibrant community. A number of years ago, again during the recession, as a lot of towns really began to fight back and began to look at what they could do to help themselves, a local group called the Local Heroes were set up in the town, and it was really in response to a television show that was featuring at the time on RTE, which featured Drogheda in County Louth. The local Chamber of Commerce called a meeting, and they invited everybody really from the town to attend and to come up with some ideas and to come up with some initiatives that they could get involved in, kind of small scale, low cost, to really just try and improve the appearance of the town, and also to try and improve and bring some life back into the town. And I think they're the only local heroes group I think that are still going in the country. I think a number of them were set up at the time, but they have kind of gelled very well, and they have done a number of very positive projects in the town. So when we were working with them as part of the Walled Towns Network as the local authority, it was great to have that community-led initiatives already happening on the ground, and it was really something then that was very, very easy to work with, and we worked well. We have been working very well with the local heroes since their inception. So they, over the past probably 18 months then, they began to start looking around at other towns and got involved in the Irish Walled Towns Network and attended some of the conferences as well that had been happening, and began then to look and meet other towns and develop kind of a series of conferences of what could be done in towns and how they could then bring some of that knowledge and learning back to Kells. And they organised 4 seminars, the first of which began in 2015 in May, of looking at how architecture and design can transform a town, and invited down some, very, very high profile national profile speakers to the town, and they all kind of arrived in the town, walked around, got a feel for the place, and then gave a presentation in the Church of Ireland, and every one of the seminars had nearly 200 people at it. So there was a lot of very good interest, and a lot of local people attended and got a huge amount from. The next one then they looked at how arts and culture can transform a town, and again, same positive response. And then they looked at the kind of inviting down landscape architects and biodiversity specialists, and looking at the greening of Kells, and at the same time Meath County Council, through funding from the Heritage Council, developed a community biodiversity action plan in Kells, and that was launched at the evening of the seminar that took place on greening. And then at the end of that then, in kind of December 2016, they began then to look at bringing it all together and saying, like, well, what's the next steps, and how can community, and what's the social fabric, if you like, and how do we build on that, to build forward. So that really, I suppose, was all the kind of precursor to us making the application then for the pilot Kickstart initiative. So it was timely in that regard. And the Kickstart then, I suppose, was to try and take a broader approach to heritage-led regeneration, and look at looking at projects that brought kind of short-term and longer-term benefits to the host town. So we were successful in getting the pilot for that initiative, and it consisted of 5 key elements, and I'm just going to quickly go through some of them for you today. The mainstay of it was a streetscape conservation scheme, looking at, we had to select an area, a part of our application that was in the historic town core. We went for the Kells Historic Town Core ACA, and again, one of the main thoroughfares up through the town, and we selected 25 buildings that we wanted to focus on, and that really felt needed a lift, and also would have probably the most impact because they were all together as a collection and a streetscape. There was also then conservation training, retailer training through Retailer Excellent Ireland, and then a very, very successful initiative which Liam and Holly organised with ourselves and the local community as well, of solving our own problems weekend. And again, it was something that had been worked on in other towns, in Carrick-on-Shore and Bandon, and Kells, I think then was the third one to have this initiative. And then that was where mentors came to the town and worked on looking at how do we take all this information now and build it into what we want to do in Kells into the future. Just to say as well at this stage, the support of the project manager Liam and Holly as well has been very, very instrumental to this project being a success, and they were always on the phone and paid many visits to Kells, day and night to work with the groups and to talk with the groups, and that's very much appreciated and very much felt by the people as well, that the effort and the energy that was being put in by the Heritage Council was very well reciprocated. So in terms of, this is just a map just showing the location of the area that we selected, which is, again, if you're kind of heading up towards the monastic site, which is just up on Market Street. So it's very much at the heart and core of the town. So the fundable works that were available and funding that was available was to look at minor repairs to chimneys and roofs, look at repairs to clearing vegetation, gutters, replacement of inappropriate windows, replacement and maybe some upgrades to shop fronts, and then kind of painting schemes as well. So kind of looking at kind of doing, again, it was a limited budget. We had 25 buildings. We had 50,000 from the Heritage Council, and that was matched then by 50,000 from Meath County Council. So again, important to have that leverage and ability in terms of going to budget meetings and being able to say, well, we've got 50,000 externally, can that be matched with our own resources as well? Which obviously means you can do a lot more then as well. So the other key kind of aspect in all of this is having good conservation advice. We're very lucky in Meath that we have a conservation officer, and he inspected the buildings prior to the application being made and was able to spec out some of the works that would be appropriate to those buildings. We did detailed photographic surveys, established ownership, kind of planning status. We held an information evening then with the property owners to get them all on board first, because we had to make sure that that people wanted to be part of the scheme, which was voluntary, that we also wanted to make sure that we had a complete kind of set of buildings as possible. And we managed to get all of the buildings to come on board and get all of the owners to come on board too. And some of that's difficult because, again, in the towns we had some owners who lived in America, we had some owners who didn't live in the town, so it was a lot of just chasing and trying to kind of get word of mouth of who owns what and who can we get to talk to. But it was, it was well worth doing because we got them on board. In terms then of having, if you like, the conservation advice then and having that available to the owners, that again was another key aspect of, I suppose, the resources that we put into this project, of being able to go out then on an individual basis and talk to the owners of the buildings. And then I suppose how the whole scheme was spent then, it was through a grant scheme. So that's how we kind of administered it. So just quickly, just to show you, I'm no one now time here, just to show you a little bit of some of the works that were done. We kind of did some streetscape kind of visualizations of just for the paint schemes. We did some conservation works, and we kind of tackled the kind of non-painting works first, the kind of roof repairs, minor repairs, the chimney repairs, again taking down any kind of extraneous aerials and satellite dishes and that from the buildings, and then kind of came up with a painting scheme then, working with architects and an artist actually who works locally, and also then going back and forth with owners so that we have a kind of a uniformity of it. So this is just some of the buildings being painted and some of the prep works being done. There was conservation works to fan lights, there was some replacement windows on 2 of the buildings as well. So that's the kind of work that was funded. In terms of then the big event in November that happened last November, we had a number of mentors that came down looking at tourism, looking at retail, looking at heritage in the town, looking at traffic, management issues, public realm issues, and then landscaping. And they all came down to Kells on a Friday night, gave a kind of an introductory seminar on Friday night. And then Saturday, we had just huge engagement from the town people themselves. We had 100 people nearly who went around and each signed up to a different mentoree and walked around the town and got for about 2 hours, and then all came back into a room and presented then, if you like, their findings, what they think should happen, and that's all been collated now and has been synthesized into a report which we'll be about to launch fairly shortly. So I suppose the positive benefit of that really, and the overall kind of vision now of what's happening in Kells has also been grounded in the fact by there's a huge there's a there's a huge community and cultural element happening in the town as well. There are 3 international kind of standard festivals happening in the town, and they're about to kick off. The first one now in a couple of weeks, called Hinterland. I've left some brochures down at the back if anyone is interested in it. There's a documentary film festival which happens in Headford House. And then there's a type trail, which is a very exciting project because, again, it's looking back at topography, and Kells is the home of lettering, and again, with very much tied into the authenticity of the town. So all of that's happening, and we too have got we're one of the towns that's been selected for the 2018 Historic Towns Initiative. So in terms of just summing up, I suppose, certainly there's a huge amount happening up in Kells. We have very, very, we've laid a lot of groundwork in terms of structures, in terms of putting in place the thinking and the planning, if you like, to see where you want to go. Community engagement is, hugely important. I wouldn't underestimate the time involved in getting that together. Timeframes can be challenging from funding bodies' point of view, especially for capital works, but again, these are something that I think all of you will be very familiar with. Ongoing support and conservation advice is very, very important in making sure that we're doing the right things that are appropriate. And I suppose, in terms of, getting communication and keeping communication open between owners, elected reps, the community, all of that is important as well. So we have, I suppose, exciting times ahead, and certainly we're very grateful for all the support from the Irish Wall Towns Network. So thank you.